This module is related to overall trade and globalization. Actually, here we are going to understand the role of GATT, which now is known as World Trade Organization, as well as United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, how they are going to facilitate or provide a cushion to the developing countries to increase their integration with the rest of the world. So what has happened after World War II? GATT was actually provide the institutional support to the least developing countries, poor economies, so that they become more integrated with the rest of the world, start globalizing more quickly. And once the GATT was established, in the beginning, only 23 countries signed, but none of them were developing countries. Later, 35 countries came as an observer in Kennedy round, and that was happened in 1964 to 67. Then, generally, least developing countries participated in Tokyo round in 1973 to 79. Actually, what has happened? The developing countries are going to raise their grievances in the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. That was not the proper platform where, because they are not going to make any rules or regulation regarding trade, but that was not the proper platform, and even the developing countries are going to, because they are the part of that conference, so they are going to raise their concerns, grievances there. Anyhow, GATT actually tried to provide or try to facilitate developing countries through the generalized system of preferences. And that has done through special treatments, special and differential treatments given to the developing countries, where some kind of leverages are given to the developing countries in terms of cutting down their tariffs and subsidies. On the other side, you know that in the beginning, GATT was not allowing, or they are not going to cover textile and apparel as well as the agriculture sector in their trade context. Therefore, most of the developing countries which are agriculture based, or their basic product is focused on textile sector or apparel sector, they were not getting any benefit of that kind of integration which is going to be supported by the World Trade Organization or GATT. So later on, they include that, and in Uruguay round in 1986 to 1984, actually agriculture were considered, and subsidies which are mostly given by developed countries to their farmers, as well as the tariffs they have imposed for agriculture products, they are not allowing agriculture imports. So all these were considered that these should be cut down, so that the developing countries who have competitive advantage in terms of agriculture products or the textile related products, they are capable to capture the market in the developed countries. So that thing is going on. In the meanwhile, once the developing countries have joined the overall globalization process through the GATT during 1970s onward, then what they need to do actually, they have to move on the industrial curve. Mean to say, they have to make their industries strong and efficient. They have to develop their productive capacity. They have the potential in terms of more labor. So labor intensive production should be increased, or now they have the opportunity to get foreign direct investment, more capital from the foreign resources or rest of the world. So capital intensive technologies they can use, or capital intensive product they can develop, or the technology which is available that can be used to develop technological intensive goods and services. Therefore, that was the perspective which was available to the developing countries to move on. If we are going to observe the situation with reference to these strategies, in this table, the agriculture product, if you are going to observe the share of developing countries in from 1973 to 1995 agriculture product, you can easily observe that there was no significant change in that. From 1970 to, if we jump up to 1995, actually declines. Mining products, marginal rise and then decline. Fuel, it again showing variation, increase, but it is going to decline as well. manufacturing is growing. At least here we are comfortable that developing countries are capable to raise share of manufacturing goods in their exports. So that is not going to have much more impact on the total merchandise export. On the other side, if we are going to observe the speed of integration of developing countries, then the fast integrators in East Asia, the large number of countries were fast integrators as compared to other regions. If we observe the most moderate integrator, the moderate integrators, Sub-Saharan Africa, weak integrators again Sub-Saharan Africa, as well as the Latin America. Slow integrators, again Sub-Saharan Africa. So most of the countries of the Sub-Saharan Africa are incapable to join globalization effectively. But East Asia, South Asia, they try to do that, and so to an extent they try to be the fast integrator. Then we are going to compare the growth rate of the poorest and richest quintiles of countries. Interestingly, developing countries, poorest countries, they are capable to raise their growth rate much more than the richest countries. So richest countries growth rate declines, the poorest countries growth rate increased. So that is a good opportunity for the developing countries, that they are trying to raise their level of incomes, and therefore they are capable to increase their productive capacity. On the other side, if we observe the trade to GDP ratio, these are the countries where trade to GDP ratio is growing up. It's positive. And here the countries which don't have a rising trend in the trade to GDP ratio. So trade to GDP ratio is going to change negatively here and positively here. So these are the countries, and here you can observe India is there, Bangladesh is there, Malaysia is there, Philippines is there, Mexico is there. So many developing countries have the scope to increase their trade with respect to GDP. If we are going to focus on Pakistan, Pakistan is not going to face much more damage. It has the potential to move from declining trade per GDP ratio to positive trade per GDP ratio. So that is the potential because it is at the border.